Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello there, this is Angela Raspass, and I am so delighted that you have discovered this Next Chapter podcast. I'd really like to take a few minutes today to introduce you to the philosophy behind a next chapter and to give you some insights as to what it is that you'll be learning and be inspired by when you become a regular listener, when in fact you subscribe to this particular podcast. Now, it's my intention to very much make the time that you spend with me of value to you, because I know that you've got a busy life and there's a lot of things that you can be doing, and so it's essential that when you decide to invest your time and your energy and your attention into something like a podcast, we need to make sure that it connects with you and makes a difference in your life. So let's have a look at, first of all, what is a next chapter? What does that really mean? Well, it means a lot of different things to a lot of women. But from a business perspective, what I see this as in my own experience and also that of my clients and the women that are in my community, a next chapter is, as the name suggests, it's the next part of your story. You've reached a certain stage in your life, and to be honest, this seems to hit a lot of us in our mid-40s and beyond. We reach this point where the world starts to open up again. Now, I'm not saying that you've been on a shelf until now, but quite often there's a lot of other things that have taken our time and our attention. It can be that we've been in a corporate career and we've now got that real burning to do something different. It could be that we've taken time out and we've been a full-time mum, and now we've got that desire to step up and do something different. It could be that you've already have or had a business, but it just didn't quite align with you any longer, and you know you need to do something different. And sometimes it's because you've moved through some sort of significant life experience or trauma, and you come out the other side knowing that you're different and you need to do something different. So it's that desire that really starts to bubble up in your heart, that thing that you want to change or impact upon the world, that really brings you into your next chapter. Now, just a note of caution here. I'm not necessarily saying that you need to change the world in terms of, being this huge figure that impacts millions. And hey, maybe you can be, which is awesome. But I'm talking about your world. And that can be as small as your neighborhood, as large as your state, as big as your country, as big as your heart. It's really up to you what a next chapter is about, because you are the author of your own life and business. So this podcast, what you can expect is a really delicious, wholehearted blend of inspiration, of skill building, of how-tos, of strategy, marketing and communication strategy to help you grow a business. But underpinning all of that, it's my absolute belief that you need to know your value and know your worth. There's too many women that I've spoken to, and spoken to myself as well, about this feeling that we're not quite enough. Okay, that inner critic that can having a bit of a field day in your head, she can stop you. She can hold you back from having the impact that you are here to have, from making the difference that you are here to make. And so I absolutely believe that before we can ever start going down the path into our next chapters, we need to get firmly anchored in our worth, firmly anchored in our value. And so I'll be talking a lot about that as well, and some really practical ways in which you can take steps into anchoring yourself into your worth. So it's going to be alternating, this podcast. Weeks like today, you're going to hear from me, and I'm going to give you some more of the backstory and some other philosophies that I share on this particular episode, this very first inaugural episode. But you don't just want to hear all about me and from me. So I am handpicking some amazing women every fortnight who I'll be talking to about their own next chapters. That's the inspiration piece, but also experts in different areas that I know will be able to help you expand and really make that difference in the world that you're here to make. Now, I'm talking about people who can help with things like copywriting and like social media and confidence and lots of other pieces that are so essential for a business to be able to expand and thrive. But a lot of those guests are also going to be talking with me about that other side, the personal development side, because I absolutely believe that business and personal development are absolutely entwined. You can't have one without the other. In fact, growing a business is probably one of the most personally developing experiences that you will ever have. Now, your net worth will never, ever exceed your self-worth. And so that's why there is so much emphasis on that side of the coin as well. Now, as a marketer myself, a marketer by trade, I believe in using the skills that come naturally to you as the best way in which to communicate and market your business. Hence, one of the reasons I'm doing a podcast. I'm a bit of a talker. I love listening to people, and interviewing is just something that really floats my boat. And the whole ability to be able to put these interviews out to the world through something as simple as a podcast and iTunes absolutely excites me. So there's so many people I'm going to be hugely excited about introducing you to over the coming weeks and months, and hey, let's go for it, even years as this podcast develops and reaches further. Now, your feedback is going to be vital to make this podcast relevant to you. You can come and visit me across on my website, which is AngelaRaspass.com. It's a funny surname. It's R-A-S for Sydney, P for Patrick, A-S-S for Sydney.com. Now, in there, you'll find the podcast and there'll be show notes. There's a way to subscribe in iTunes, and in particular to ask me any questions that you would like covered in future episodes. Now, to get to that spot, you literally just go to AngelaRaspass.com/Ask Angela. And then I will be in future episodes responding by finding guests and speakers that really hone in on the topics that you want to hear about. This isn't a lecture. This is a conversation, a wholehearted conversation. I want to make sure that we are creating and delivering what it is that you most need as you develop your next chapter business and life. But I'd like to pause for a moment or rather take a bit of a back cycle and let you know where I've come from and how my own next chapter has begun and has expanded as I've moved along. Because yes, life is pretty darn good today. I have a business that I love, but it wasn't always like that. And it's important always to turn around, I believe, and look at our past and learn from it. That past does not have to determine your future. Sometimes it can certainly put some great foundations under you, but there is parts of it that you need to learn from and let go of as well. But so, really, who am I? Well, I'm actually a Kiwi by birth. I was born in New Zealand and I came across to Australia in 1988 it was going to be for 3 months. So I think I've sort of overstayed that original intention. And the reason for that is because I literally fell into a job and into a career that started to go extremely well. And it felt to me as a young 19-year-old that this was an opportunity that I could not miss. And England and Europe would just have to wait. So that was a sales background. So I've been selling literally since I was a teenager. From there, I started studying marketing and I moved through the ranks at News Limited. And was doing, at the end of my career there, sponsorships and events for the Daily and Sunday Telegraph, which are 2 big newspapers here in Australia. But things changed when I had my first child. I got married around 26, and then Cameron came at when I was 30. And at that stage, I realised that going back into corporate world was no longer an option for me. I very much craved the flexibility of being more available to my child. And not long after that, I also had another child by the name of Charlotte. So a lot of women listening, or if you're listening to this, you may have had a similar experience. A great career, great job, everything was great until your kids came along and you realised that that is no longer possible. You start a next chapter right then and there. Now, what happened with me is that I looked at the skills that I had from corporate land, which was marketing, communication, sales, and thought, well, what can I do with this? and I decided to open my own marketing consultancy. Really low entry costs. I had a laptop and a really big clunky back then mobile phone. This is back in 2003 is when I started. And I just started from there, looking around to small businesses. And here's the key with any business. You need to look at, what are your own skills, and then looking at the market, where is there a gap? What am I passionate about? What is it that I want to make a difference with? Even back then, I recognized that small businesses needed good marketing help, but didn't have the budget of big businesses. And so I put out my shingle and off I went. Now, I'm really fortunate that that business grew very nicely. I started on the dining room table, and I think it was in year 2, I got my first other mum who also worked with me, another casual worker. And then it grew, and so I ended up actually in the spare room just next door from where I am now with 3 part-time mums working with me, taking care of small business marketing. From there, we moved to serviced offices in Sydney and got a bit more professional. And it grew again. And I actually ended up with my husband purchasing an office in Sydney and actually starting with full-time staff. And we had clients in 3 states, and it was all going, to the outside world exceedingly well. Had that classic, multiple 6-figure turnover. All those boxes were ticked, and it looked great from the outside. But I got to tell you, it was a very different story on the inside. And this is where I need to share 2 different important points. Now, the first side is, when I was introducing this podcast, I talked about the fact that some of us go through trauma, or some of us go through some other major challenge that actually brings on a next chapter. Now, for me, and I'm very, very comfortable in sharing this these days because I found that it does help other people, I had to come through addiction. I had a tendency to drink more than I should have, but I now recognize that it was an addiction and I had to get help with it. It really had started to pull me down. The negativity in my life, the way that I spoke to myself, the way that it was blunting my desires to make a difference in the world meant it had to change. But it was really hard to admit that I had this, as I saw it then, dark secret, this weakness that I needed to overcome. And I tried to fight it myself for a very long time. Initially it was my way of relieving stress. I had a very busy life, but what it came down to at the end of the day is that I had an addiction. Now, we can have addictions in many forms, whether it be alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, shopping, exercise. There's lots of different things. And at the heart of all addictions, I believe, is this desire to self-medicate, to numb, to take away pain that we don't want to look at. Now, fortunately, it took a wee while, and this is something that I talk about often on my site and with other people, is that you have to go through the cycle of becoming aware and then willing to change, willing to ask for help, because it can be really hard to do that. Fortunately, I did eventually, and I got the help that I needed. And that story ran alongside of when my business really started to take off, when I had dealt with my demons, so to speak, and it became an important part of my story. But as I got weller, that's the way I like to look at it, as I got weller, I became more aware. I became more connected to my heart. I started to really question what it was that I had built in this business. And what I discovered is that biggerer is not betterer. I often think of Dr. Seuss with the Lorax when I think of this story. What had happened is that I had continued to build my marketing agency because that seemed like the right thing to do. Because you can, however, doesn't mean that you should. And as I became much more aware of who I was and what I stood for, as I became well, as I mentioned before, I started to question what it was that I had built. I started to realize that the joy of helping people, which was my original intent when I started the agency, had fallen by the wayside. As I got bigger, my expenses got bigger, taking care of staff, I had to do bigger projects, and I actually was no longer at the coalface, really connecting one-on-one with clients. I became much more of a project manager. And my heart was really, really just not being taken care of. I often remember, actually one of the last meetings that I was in with my business, when I really recognized that I could not keep going in this direction, when I was really burnt out. It was with an organization. I was doing business-to-business marketing strategy, and I was running a workshop for them. And these were the guys who actually created, if you've ever been in Sydney or probably in other places as well, there are handholds in trains, like bent sort of pipes which you hold onto so that you don't fall over as you go around the corners. Well, this company made those pipes. They bent those pipes. They're an engineering company, and we were helping them market themselves to the mining industry over here in Australia. Now, honestly, I recognise that engineering is very important. I recognise that those handheld pipes on trains are really important, but they weren't really important to me. And if your heart is not in your business, it is impossible for that business to build and to be sustained long term. I know that without any doubt in the world. So I had to make a really big decision. I had to actually get still and give myself time to work up the courage to actually change directions, to begin to write a new chapter. It took a while. A lot of things don't happen overnight, but I realized that if I continued down the path of straight strategic marketing just because I could, it meant that I was absolutely destined for burnout and for sorrow. And I didn't start my own business to have that type of ending to that story. So I let it go. That was back at the end of 2012, and I gave myself some time to really lean into what I wanted to create. I am still immensely passionate about marketing, about communication, about sales, all of those essential parts of getting your message out into the world, with connecting with what I call most aligned clients, bringing them to you and serving them and nurturing them and taking care of them. Absolutely passionate about that. But I also know that there's other pieces in that puzzle that we must take care of before we start to market to the world. That's that self-belief, that trust part, that knowing your value, knowing your worth. That's absolutely essential. And so all of the work I do today starts with that piece. I also know from this story that you need to look for the gap in the market that leverages your life skills, your life experience. For me, I knew what it was like to come through a real personal challenge and to be able to change your mindset enormously, to go in a whole new direction, to let go of that incredibly negative self-talk and begin to believe in yourself again. And I know what it's like to be doing a business that you're good at, but that doesn't light you up. So I know what it's like to have to find the courage to change. And all of those pieces blended in beautifully with my experience in marketing and communications to help other women recognize that they too have come to the point where they want different, and to help them create their own next chapter business, to start that new journey, to create that new pathway into possibility. And so that's what I do today. And that's exactly why this podcast has come about. Because I've been inspired by so many women that I have had wholehearted conversations with, people that I have learned from, people that I have worked with, people that just blow me away with their insights and their experiences. And that's what I want to share with you. So if you are sitting on the edge of your own next chapter in business and life, because the two are so entwined, then you are absolutely in the right place with investing your time and energy and connecting with me and my friends and colleagues in this particular podcast. I've got great hopes to be able to expose you to new ideas and new possibilities that really light you up. I'm delighted at the thought of being able to just stir inside of you that desire for something new and something different. And I'm absolutely excited to be able to support you with building skills, be they skills of confidence or skills of strategy, to help you create and grow that next chapter business, that one that really leverages your life experiences. You know, you've probably had challenges just like me, and it may be that the business that you're wanting to create or realign actually leverages those challenges. You know where the potholes are in the road. You can help people maneuver around them. Now, a next chapter business can be across all sorts of categories. You know, I really focus on helping women that are in service-based businesses. That's my particular area of expertise, so to speak. But there's plenty to listen to here if you've got a product-based business as well. There's so much I'm looking forward to sharing with you, and as I said, I really appreciate the time that you are taking to invest in listening to this podcast. Please come along and subscribe via iTunes or on my website. And the other wonderful thing I'd like to share with you is, as often as possible, I will be providing with my guests and myself download exercises through many of the episodes so that you can take action and actually do something with the information and the insights and the experience that you will get from listening to myself and my guests. I really want to make sure that this is a valuable use of your time, so I'm committed to making a difference in your next chapter. So thank you again for tuning in, and I really look forward to connecting with you each week as we create this pathway together and you move forward into your next chapter with confidence, self-belief, and a burning desire to make a difference. So I'm Angela Raspass, and I look forward to talking with you again really soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspass.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.